We talked about Greenwood Financial maybe about 6 months ago. This is a digital banking platform launched by the rapper Killer Mike a while ago, which was designed specifically to serve Black and Latinx communities. They now have announced a major haul in its Series A funding round. We're talking about $40 million here from some of the country's biggest lenders. Now, as part of our Unequal Recovery series, we'd like to now welcome back to this program rapper, activist, and banker Michael Render, Killer Mike, as well as Andrew Young III, who is the co-founder and board member as well of Greenwood. Mike, welcome back to the program. Let's start off specifically with where's the money coming from?
Thank you for having me. Some of the biggest banks have jumped on board. And actually, if you go to my page, IG, just Killer Mike, you can see them. I put up a whole list. I don't want to leave out anyone. Someone I do want to tip my hat to, besides the bigger banks that are there, is one of the most successful rap labels in the country right now. Comes out of Atlanta. It's called QC, and they also are investors in that bank. So as you people come to the page and check it out, you'll get to see which of the big banks is putting their money where their mouth is and actually saying we're here. And you get to see that hip hop beyond singing and dancing and saying get with this banking platform is putting their money where their mouth is, because we wish to see more fairness and equity in the financial sector.
And Andrew, I mean, we just put up on the screen here graphics of some of the banks involved in this: Wells Fargo, PNC, Visa, Bank of America as well. When you go into these banks, so you go into these conference rooms virtually or whatever it was, what's sort of the selling point that you had to make to them? Was it hard, or were they sort of eager to sort of jump on board with a concept like Greenwood?
They were very positive about what we were offering. And the idea was very simple. We're here to remove the bias in banking. We're here to close the wealth gap, and we're confident that we have the skills to do it with the people that we've put in place and the investors we've been able to attract.
Mike, on that note, how are you thinking about financial education as well? Particularly, we've seen rates creep up just a little bit. So you want to be able to lend at affordable rates, but how do you also ensure that financial education is all-inclusive as well?
Well, the beautiful thing about financial education is it's kind of like learning to swim in the deep South. Your cousins take you to the lake and you get in.
Okay.
And part of an ongoing financial education, I happen to know there's something coming down the line from the private sector where people from who own major corporations are going to be assisting schools and bringing financial education very early. So look for that to come out. In terms of, though, the unbanked, part of banking and learning how to bank is just being able to bank. And what we have is banking deserts, right along with food deserts, in many working class communities that are Black, brown, and in the deep South, even white. What this gives people the opportunity to do is have their bank right in their hand and begin their financial education in a very simple way of actually being able to deposit money without fees, take out money without fees, and to begin the act of banking. You guys still there? To begin the act of banking. So along with financial literacy programs that are not Greenwood, I'm associated, that I'm supporting the community. I also am supporting the unbanked getting banked, because there's no better way to learn a bike than get on that bike with training wheels.
Bo, similar question to you here. We're getting a lot of questions about how you're specifically working with FDIC insured banks as well, partnering with some other banks to make sure this really does continue to be successful.
Yeah, Greenwood is working closely with minority-owned banks. If you go to bankgreenwood.com, you'll see the whole program that we've laid out of how we want to be the catalyst between big banks and community banks, where we attract people who are in these, as Mike said, banking deserts, and just make financial services readily available to Black and Hispanic communities in ways that they haven't in the past.
And how do you ensure you do that, though, without imposing I guess, too many fees, for lack of a better word? We've seen sort of people come into this space before, meaning these sort of banking deserts, but they didn't always come in with the best intentions, or they came in with a business model that could only really sustain itself by charging large fees or a wide variety of fees. How do you sort of navigate those waters?
Well, you start by having a great founding group with Killer Mike, Ambassador Andrew Young, and Ryan Glover, who have sincere intentions of making their community better. And so we're working closely with our investor partners to make sure that we're providing products and services that benefit our community 100%.
And Mike, you kind of made a point just a little bit ago, this idea that, you know, rappers and entertainers, you know, are so much more than just that. We've obviously seen that with you, other people in the music industry, like Jay-Z, other people, of course, in sports, like LeBron James. There is a sense now that people who have managed to sort of build a platform and build wealth through some of the, I guess, what are more traditional areas for a lot of black folks to build that wealth, now have the power to sort of branch out into the traditional areas that white people have had to build that wealth. Explain that a little bit more.
Yeah, I believe you start from the position of power you're in. If my position of power personally is singing and dancing, if LeBron's is running pick and rolls and dunking the ball, then that's where we need to start at. Start at what you're good at, make money from that, and then partner yourself with people who know business. People like Ryan Glover, people like John Hope Bryant, people like Michael V. Roberts and Robert Smith. We have tons of successful black people who dominated in the business world. There's no reason that we should not be coordinating with these people for the betterment of ourselves individually, the betterment of our direct communities, and the betterment of the wider community. My grandfather taught me, take care of yourself very first, right? Take care of yourself, make sure your savings is good, make sure your investments are good. Then take care of your neighbors. Help those who are unable to help themselves, and that takes care of the wider community. If the black community is a strong community economically, if the Latinx community and the poor white working class community is a stronger community, the greater community in this country is. So I'm a firm believer in self-investment and community investment and in making sure that these banks can help. I also like to add, when you look at banks like Citizen Trust Banks in Atlanta, that's been around for 100 years. When I first did the Bank Black movement 6 years ago, this bank offered a better card for people at better rates. So I think that once in the marketplace, we will have the opportunity to do the same thing. And I'd like to add that some of the benefits of banking with us at Greenwood are this. If my paycheck pays me Friday, yet my rent is due Wednesday, if I'm going to continue to build good credit, I need to pay that rent Wednesday. You get fronted that money on a Wednesday to pay so that as your credit acclimates and becomes a better credit, then you go into home purchase and car purchase, which you double back around, get the banking or get the lending from us, partner with FDIC banks, and you get an opportunity to start to grow the American dream.
Mike, on that note, we were watching you earlier on the live feed of Bernie Sanders' Twitter down, of course, in where was I?
Alabama.
Bessemer, Alabama. Yeah, where our family's from.
It's been a long day. I appreciate that. Talk to us about the importance of the Amazon union vote to you.
Well, I'm a product of a union family. I'm a product and former union member of the Teamsters when I worked at UPS. UPS gave me two things: gave me a bad back and a great mind. I realized that I did not have the capacity to do that work 20, 30 years, and anyone who does deserves the dignity of good health care. They deserve the dignity of the top rate that they can afford to be paid. And these packages that we want to land on our door don't get there by magic or by robots. People who are hardworking gets there. So it's not enough to say, if Sanders says, I want $15 minimum wage, well, we already pay $15. Well, if other warehouses in Bessemer are paying 18, 20, 21 bucks, then we should be equal to that. And I would also like to say, anytime people want to be organized, I have supported. There's a famous gentleman club in Atlanta that I just love to death called Pinups. When the girl said, Michael, we want a union, and if you got to support us by not coming, I stopped going to that club until those girls said it was okay. So I just like to say, on every level, the worker has the right to organize. Now, if they vote it down, it was voted down by the workers. But I would like to say that the company used some scrupulous means in terms of scaring people out of the union. People who were pro-union were fired. I met women who had arm injuries, were told to simply walk it out and exercise it. There was a woman who had a heart attack at a machine. They have air conditioners there, and they're not being allowed to use. They cannot turn their fans on because the fans are for the cooling of equipment and not people. So I'd just like to say, as we celebrate the world's richest man, and Jeff Bezos, God bless his soul, we have to also demand that he be like the world's richest man hundreds of years ago, Mansa Musa, and be charitable and fair about the way he treats his workers in his warehouse.